Hello, Steve. Hello, Jill. It's time to game classy.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I didn't hear.
Oh, man.
We didn't hear the recording in progress.
We didn't, and I fucked it up.
We lost.
All of us talk about Darude Sandstorm.
And oh my God. Well, I guess I will herald the new beginning with Beyond the Gates of Antaaaaaaarrriiiiiieeeeessss.
Sorry, folks, we were not recording. We got so fun into our discussion about the death of Beyond the Gates of Antaaaaaaarrriiiiieeeeessss. The gates are closed, Steve. Gates closed.
The gates are closed. The historic origin of the poopmen. The poopmen have returned to the sewer.
Yes, for those who are longtime listeners of our podcast, which we actually made fun of before because we were like, no one listens to this podcast.
And I said there's at least 5 of them they post on Facebook, unless it's you running an elaborate Truman Show level deception on me, which may be. And then yes, you confirmed that every night I go to sleep, you touch the screen, you're like, "Good night, sweet prince."
Yes, every night. Yes, Beyond the Gates of Antaaaaaaarrriiiiiieeeeess is a. For those who listened in the middle years of Game Classy, like 4 or 5 years ago, it was a game that grew out of Bolt Action. It is now dead. It is no longer being supported by Warlord Games. We talked about some of the benefits. It uses the rule set for Bolt Action, changing it up to D10s instead of D6s. It's a smaller platoon style game, so you don't have to have that many models. But the negatives is that it did rely on an IP that nobody cared about or knew.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying your Games Workshop is able to charge what they charge because Space Marines are an IP that people recognize. A lot of people have played video games and they'll just buy the models just to have the models on their shelves and put them together. Yes. But with any game that's more modern, this isn't the age of Warzone or War the Maelstrom or any of those other games that grew out of the 90s. No one wants to drop that kind of cash on a game that they don't know if other people are going to be playing, especially when most of your models are metal or resin.
And very expensive and premium price.
I think that's like Bolt Action is a great example of a game because Warlord has their own models for it that are metal and plastic, but the game also is, since World War II, there's dozens of manufacturers of models that you can actually use in your games. So it's not like you're limited to the horrendous Warlord sculpts. You can go get some nice ones from Artisan or something similar. But Beyond the Gates of Antaaaaaaarrriiiiieeeess, because it was so tied to an IP, you had to use the IP's models because you can't really go up to your opponent and saying, "I'm playing the Zorblacks," and they're like, "Those aren't Zorblacks models. Those are like Lego men," and you're like,
those are Tyranids.
Yeah, I'm proxying them as the Zorblacks, so you can't do that much, and that's the problem. And right about where we realized that we weren't recording, I was telling Steve that what would have saved that game is if it had been a generic sci-fi Space War II game. If, for example, you could say this is generic Eldar, the generic Tau, the generic Space Marines, generic, that's just the army list, but they're just called the Zorblacks, and they're obviously Tyranids. It's kind of what Kings of War does. And it's the armies of dust. No, you mean the Tomb Kings? No. They're the armies of dust.
The armies of dust. No, for me, my idea was absolutely to do basically you just take every World War II army and you just make them into different colonies, space colonies.
Yep.
And then you add specialties based on the space colonies. So, but you just, it's Gundam style where it's, Gundam is all humans versus humans.
Yeah.
They just have different tech. So I would do the same thing, but for this game.
Yeah. We were talking about okay, you all your points are the same across the board. So you generally will spend, 1,500 points. And then you have extra points that you're going to add on to there, like the Jungle Planet or Ice Planet, veterans, and it's plus 25 points per unit or something stupid. I don't know how you do it, per army. You'd say it's 200 points for all your models to be able to move through terrain without taking a penalty. Okay, perfect. That's all you need. And so that way each army can feel unique, but yet kind of still have the same stat line, making it a fairly competitive game.
Yeah, and you could actually do, instead of tanks, you do cool Gundams.
Oh yeah, you could do Gundams. You could do cool tanks, like, if you're using generic guard models, you'd have Lehman Russes or Hydras, Hellhounds, any of that stuff. There would be a flamethrower tank in the sci-fi future. You could have mechs. There's nothing like the mechs are the Imperial Knights. You could use those models, no problem. But you just you could use whatever you want because you're designing your own colony. It's not like any specific colony is out there. Like like these are my Cadians, you can call them, these are my Canadians, and then you use them in your army as your Canadian army.
That's great. That's great.
That's what I always love about 3D printing is that they always switch out the names on shit to be like, so that way it's hard to find them. So you kind of got to know what the keyword is in order to find it. And so if you're like looking for Cadians, you have to like, oh God, what are they going to call them now? And you're just like, take a guess, Canadians. And then boom, it like pops up. Everything is Canadian, one for one proxies. And you're like, I
can't. There's one sculpt of a naked dragonborn lady in like a pinup pose that I cannot escape every time. There's like, I look up 3D printing models, no matter what, it is always in like the first page of search results. Not that I'm like complaining, just like I've never been haunted by a miniature like that before. And it's just like her titties are out and it's just like, why is this in every model search?
Isn't Google, don't they base your search results based upon previous searches? I'm just saying.
No, see, that's the thing.
So if you were previously looking at big tittied Dragonborn, that would probably be the first one to pop up. I'm not judging, Steve. I'm not yucking your yum. I'm just saying.
That's the thing. When I'm searching specifically for big titty dragonborns, I'm using private DuckDuckGo browser. I'm not using anything tied to Google. So this is a unique instance of just like every time I search for 3D printed specifically, it is showing me this miniature. And again, like I said, that's the weird part, because if it was tied to my Google account and I had searched, obviously like naked titty dragonborn ladies, which I do frequently, then it would at least make sense. But in this instance, they're not tied together, so it is quite a mystery to me.
I'm gonna press X for doubt.
What?
Just pressing X for doubt.
You're doubting that I don't use a different search engine for my pornographic interests, so it doesn't pollute my normal search engine.
I just think that your searches are so deviant that they've bled into your normal search. Like your browsers have become self-aware and are starting to talk to each other. Like, oh my God, he's looking up a naked dragonborn again. Can you believe that? He's like, oh, okay. Well, next time he searches it, and next time he searches anything, I'm gonna make sure it pops up on my browser.
I see. So you're okay. So you're going with there's like a singularity thing going on.
Yes, you have broken your search engines. I'm not saying you're the only one. I'm just saying it's going to only be a matter of time before these search engines start talking across the Ethernet and communicating and forming basically the death of humanity.
I see. Actually, there is one thing that there is definitely like 100% truth to, and it's not tied to search engines, but it's Facebook. I have because I talk to a lot of people on Messenger, and like I've talked to Angel Baker a bunch about random stuff, because we talk a lot. And one of the things that inevitably happens is he'll send me like a YouTube link or something, or like we'll be talking about something, and then suddenly something that I've never searched for before, never put into a search engine, never actually looked for ever, or even clicked on, because like we'll just be talking about it. So like there was some fucking board game he was talking about, he kickstarted. I don't remember what it was, but like let's say its name was like Arcanus or whatever, and like so we're talking about Arcanus, and we say Arcanus a few times in this chat. And blah, 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 blah. And then sure enough, I shit you not, the very next day, my Facebook ads riddled with Arcanus, like riddled with it. And I'm like,
that doesn't make that does not sound unusual to me.
Yeah, so there's definitely some plenty of hidden connections that you might not know. So perhaps you're right. Perhaps the singularity has occurred, and its only desire after achieving sentience is to please me and show me as many dragon lady boobies as possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, that could, I bet you, or else, someone is sneaking up to your phone or your computer at night and just whispering into it, naked dragonborn, naked dragonborn. So that will keep skewing your views on that one.
I see. Maybe. I mean, here's the ultimate test. I'm not going to type it into anything, but I'm going to talk about dragons fucking cars right now. Are you aware of that subgenre?
I'm aware of that subgenre.
Now,
I'm not proud of that I'm aware of that, but I'm aware of it.
I actually have a very specific theory about that subgenre. I think that entire subgenre exists on the back of one very rich dude.
Absolutely.
I think one guy has that specific fetish and has commissioned 100% of the art that exists on the internet.
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be just one. It needs to be one guy who starts the ball rolling. It's the pebble that starts the avalanche, Steve.
I see.
He starts it off. He commissions like a couple hundred pieces, spends about $1,000 on it or more, and then once he floods the internet with it, then people realize it's like, oh shit, I'm attracted to this. Blah! Then they start commissioning it, and then it just branches out. It's the avalanche. It's like
I see.
It's like how the French Revolution started, Steve.
I see. I mean, yeah, I can definitely see comparing dragon.
The people singing
the song of dragons, fucking cars.
Exactly.
All right.
Even though that musical had nothing to do with the French Revolution, I'm aware of it. But whatever.
Yeah, wasn't Les Miserables just like the 30 or so people who were just like pissed in that one specific block?
Yeah, kind of. It's about some riots that occurred in like 1830s or something like that. It had nothing to do with the French Revolution, but
it's about Jean Valjean.
Jean Valjean.
The funny thing since
Jean Valjean.
The weird fighting games coming up. I linked you that one of the authors, Write and Fight.
Mm-hmm.
So that one's really good, but specifically this reminded me there is actually a 100% real Les Miserables fighting game that like some dudes randomly made like many years ago. It's really funny.
Mortal Kombat.
Good old digitized actors.
Get over here. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on to some let's move back to Beyond the Gates of Antares. So it is a really sad thing that system is down. But I think it's a good system. Warlord just really executed it poorly. They really need to just stick with historical games because that's where they make the best. As much as I appreciate what they did there, I think opening it up as open gaming OGL, kind of porting it over, or at least even selling the engine to be used by other companies would be much better. I think that the rulebook could have been scaled down, have been really easy to use, and just like as a generic sci-fi game that you can play that maybe doesn't run as slow as 40K. And you could use it like, let's say you have a shitty edition of 40K. You could always be like, oh, we could always play a couple games of this until 40K gets back on its feet 2 years from now when it launches a new edition. I think that would have been the best idea for them, or the best thing to do at this point for them. But anywho, I really like the D10s. It's just, rolling 10 to 20 D10s is really obnoxious.
Yeah, I mean, 10 is the absolute maximum you should ever need to roll, and it shouldn't be often.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the new edition of 30K coming out. I know I'm not the only one who's super excited about this. Many of Grognard's and horrendous 40K players are also excited about this as well. The new edition rules got leaked. Some of the player test rules got online. So some of it's really early playtest stuff. Some of it's really late playtest stuff, probably going into the new edition style playtest stuff. One of the things I like, Steve, is Games Workshop is gradually dipping their toes into alternating activations. Gradually.
I mean, that's arguably the best system.
I was talking with Dwayne, and Dwayne said Games Workshop is sludging their way into the 21st century of gaming. The new rules work very similar to the old 40, and any Games Workshop game you've ever played, any mass battles game. It's where I do all of my phases and then you do all of your phases, right? with only time that we're really interacting during a phase is during a combat phase, or if you're rolling saves.
Yeah, you can only get away with that style, really. Like, I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but like, you can really only get away with that style if your opponent has the ability to do something on your turn as well. Like fantasy with charge reactions, like you could get away with having one person do all of their stuff, because when we're playing a game of fantasy, like you don't have to sit there and just watch me like beat the shit out of you and like where there's nothing you can do. You have some agency on my turn, whereas like I'm going to stand and shoot with this unit, I'm going to flee with this unit, you know.
So keeping on that in your mind, the previous edition of Horus Heresy, and I believe this was also in 7th edition 40K, I don't know if it's a newer edition, you could snap fire if you were charged into combat, right? Very, very simple. It's a reaction. However, they've increased the number of reactions that can occur in your turn. So now in every phase, your opponent gets one reaction. So if, for example, in your movement phase, you move you move a unit or something like that, your opponent can say, I'm going to react doing this. And then you do your reaction, which could be like, I'm going to go to ground, or I'm going to open fire. Like, let's just say that, right? So kind of like an Overwatch. And then, but only one unit. You only get one reaction per phase, unless you have a special character that allows more reactions, right? And you can never have more than 3. So then your next phase would be, your shooting phase. And once again, your opponent gets one reaction during that shooting phase. That's something that they could do, where it's like, oh, I'm going to fire back, or I'm going to go to ground, I'm going to do whatever. And then same thing with the assault phase. All the phases, you get at least one reaction to do during those phases. So the cool thing about that is that, one, as a player, you have to say to yourself, how is my opponent going to react to my actions during this turn? And 2, as the opposing player, you get to be like, oh, well, shit, I have to save my reaction for this unit right here. However, this is a juicy target over here. If I do this over here, I might be able to get this, but I really need to do it over here. So how are you going to use your reactions during that phase becomes super important. And I think that's like makes the game infinitely more interesting. I don't know how you feel about that, but
yeah, I mean, that sounds excellent.
Yeah, which I think is like an amazing move. I don't know how it's going to play. Judging, of course, all the people online are all, I don't like the new edition, I'm just going to play the old edition. Okay, if you're just going to play the old edition, what about when you go to a game store or you pick up someone and someone you're playing against wants to play the new edition? Are you just going to be like, no, I only play the old edition?
Those people don't actually play the game.
Yes, that's true.
They just bitch and say they're going to play the old edition and play with no one, or they play with their one weird friend because both of them are banned from the local game store for racist tirades.
It's true. It's very true as well. Thank you for putting that in perspective, Steve.
Yeah, it's all good.
And so yeah, and then I think people are kind of complaining because when you play smaller level games, like let's say 1,500 point games, one reaction per turn can really swing the game. However, when you're playing bigger games, like let's say 3,000 points, one reaction per turn really doesn't do that much difference. I think that is it's accurate, but I don't know how that's going to play out. I haven't played any big games using those test rules yet. So
well, yeah, I mean, and for me, one of the big things would be, you mentioned that unless a character gives you more, so like I would need to see how that shakes out, because I think that's an important part of the equation there. Because I mean, if it's limited to one, that must mean that they feel that the reactions are very strong to have such a low limit. So that would mean, like, does that mean that the game is going to just devolve into like take as many characters, let you take as many reactions as possible because they're overpowered? So you know that.
Yeah,
that's
the thing is that you could have max 3 per turn, right? Per phase, 3 per phase. And there's the characters, you get warlord traits. So you build your own little, general, you give them warlord traits. And usually the warlord traits would be 1 extra move and 1 extra reaction in the combat phase, or 1 extra reaction in the movement phase. Mm-hmm. So you'll at least get, if you take a warlord trait, 1 extra reaction per phase, or well, per one of the phases. And it says that you can only have max 3 per phase. So, and in looking through the book, if you max it out, you might be able to get 3 in one of the phases, and all the rest will get just 1. And maybe you might be able to get 2 in one of the other phases. But I haven't really been able to look at the trader section that much yet, so I don't know. But does that make sense? Like, you only will be able to get 3 per phase max, and a person who's able to do that is probably spending a shit ton of points on characters, so they don't have enough to make 3 actions.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a fantastic, cool little rule thing added to there. I got really excited when I was reading through that and, really studying how that's going to play out. 30K has a lot of the same problems that 40K has in terms of it just rules bloat. The massive amount of rules you have to remember per game is insane. But I'm up for the challenge. I like it. I'm a veteran player. I've played for a while, but I honestly, it's like, I can't see people playing this and be like remembering every one of these fucking rules is ridiculous. Where your guns have like 6 different keywords next to them, you got to remember each of them. It's insane. But who knows? So yeah, that was the I wanted to talk about just a little bit on those rules because I think they're so fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean the one good thing is like if you're playing 30K with the right people, I don't think anyone's gonna give a shit. They're just gonna play and they're like, yeah, sure, whatever, it's fun. I think if you play with some dude whose neck veins start bulging about every little rules interaction, just don't play with that guy. Yeah. Like you can hit the bricks. It's not like it's a fucking tournament like where like you just leave.
Hit the bricks, Daddy-o.
Yeah, just hit the bricks. If you don't like it, fucking bounce. You are not required to give your time to people who are shitbags. I remember I used to get like, the maddest I ever made a 40K player in my life was this dude who was just being a fucking cockbag about every fucking rule. Like, everyone's like, are you sure? Can I see that in the codex? Just like every fucking rule, like, and he was one of the most unfriendly and unfun people. And by like the bottom of turn 2, I was just like, you know what, I concede. And I was like, I got the judge. I was like, I concede, give him full points, I'm done. And like, he was so fucking mad that I conceded. And you know what? More people need to do that. Like, when you go to a Warhammer tournament, if you go to a Warhammer tournament and you play against someone who's a shitbag, just scoop. Just fucking scoop. Just leave. Do not play them, because like eventually they will get weeded out, because they like and I don't believe that they'll get weeded out because they'll have some sort of like amazing realization where they're like, oh, I'm actually a dickbag, people don't like playing with me. That's never going to happen. These people don't have that kind of self-awareness. But what will eventually happen is when enough people just stop playing against them, they'll stop playing because people won't play against them.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's an important thing, is like, people have to learn in specific ways. They have to be told that their behavior is not appropriate. I mean, and you know what? When you're confronted with my behavior is not appropriate, you have to sit there and go to yourself like, either oh shit, my appropriate probably wasn't behavior. I should change the way that I'm behaving in order to be more appropriate for the gaming space. Or you just go, fuck it, no one cares, and then just do your own shit,
Right, exactly, and that's the thing too. Is like, it's that's kind of like a bigger. There's a bigger symptom of like people are really, really taking minis games like 40K and to a lesser extent Sigmar just like way too fucking seriously. Like these games have, first of all, these games use fucking tape measures to move your models. Then immediately should disqualify them from anyone taking them as a seriously competitive game. Like that's like number 1. Number 2, they use so many fucking dice. The randomness level is through the charts.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Off the charts in these games. So that should also like make you not take it serious. So like people like just like fucking sweating, like veins bulging about how like to be like being ultra competitive at like the game where you're playing with toys is just like, fucking reevaluate your life, man. Like, please. Like, I mean, I was guilty of that too. I was super competitive with fucking Warhammer. I was fucking like, I was a mad Warhammer sweat. Like, it was just like, but you know what? Like, I was wrong. Like, I was wrong to be like that. It's just, now that I'm older and I look back at it and I'm like, oh yeah, I was a fucking idiot. Like,
Yeah, you were a fucking idiot. However, the way that you treated your opponents, that was they deserved it. I'm just saying. Never
well,
feel bad
I mean,
about that.
I always treated people very respectfully. I never.
That's where you're wrong. You should have treated them with the disrespect that they deserved.
Well, see, that I shouldn't. I mean, sorry. I always treated every opponent with the exact appropriate level amount of respect.
With the appropriate level. Oh,
Yeah.
right.
So, like most people would always give me very high sports scores because I mean I was there to have a good time. Even though I was very competitive, I wasn't there to be fucking mad. And like, and I also didn't really rules nitpick either. Like if something's like if my opponent and that was to my detriment because I actually did get cheated at a couple tournaments because I just trusted that my opponent was not lying. So like I was like, okay, what do I need to hit? And he's like, oh, you need this. I'm like, oh, those guys are that weapon skill? And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay. Like I believed my opponents when they told me that something was weapon skill 3, but it was actually weapon skill 2.
Which bastards.
Which I mean, and he knew what he was doing. Like he was intentionally cheating. Like I come to find out much later that like I was like, they were like, oh yeah, that guy's like a known cheater. Like he lies about that shit all the time. I'm like, oh okay. Like so that guy's just actually like a piece of shit. Cool.
All right. So I want to switch gears a little bit to a Kickstarter that I had no idea they were still doing Kickstarters on a regular. Reaper Bones is doing another Kickstarter for Tales from the Green Griffin. I had no idea that Reaper, but apparently from looking at it, Reaper has done a Kickstarter just about every year in April for the Reaper Bones line. And I'm like, at this point, do you really need to do a Kickstarter for this?
Well, I mean, we've discussed at length about how Kickstarter is completely not at all what its mission statement said it was going to be. Like
it should be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of should or not, it's just like it is what it is, and what it is a pre-selling tool for big companies.
Yeah, and Kickstarter doesn't care because they get a cut of that. So it's like
right, like they're gonna be like, oh no, this giant company is giving us a cut of their $25 million Kickstarter. Boo hoo! What are we gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I did want to. I thought that was hysterical, and it's like you get all the normal stuff on there. For $125 you get everything, which is, I guess, if you're a DM, that's a good deal. I mean, $125 you get a lot of fucking minis in there.
You know what? My only complaint, and supposedly this has been fixed. I know, so I don't want to slander this product. It's very likely this music, but I was on wave 1. The two biggest complaints I had with Reaper Bones were, one, the material was too pliable.
Yeah, I think they fixed that with the Bones Black stuff now.
That was one. It was just way too fucking pliable. And two, they didn't achieve the goal of being like, take the model out and paint it. They just did not hold paint. They held paint for shit. Yeah, they were awful. They just did not work. Like
I'm gonna go back and listen to the early Reaper Bones cast that we did because I have all the cast archive. And I'm gonna find that where I'm gonna say like, this isn't gonna work. You still have to prime your fucking minis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like that's the thing. You don't have to prime the WizKids ones because they're pre-primed.
Yeah. Well, I get what they're saying, but I probably still would.
No, the WizKids ones are actually primed. Like they're legitimately primed with paint. They work. Okay, so you can have that stance, but I can say like in the 1-to-1, I have taken both a Reaper Bones miniature out of its package, washed it, and then painted it. Even though I think washing is bullshit, they said they recommend washing it, but I think that's bullshit because it's it was billed as take it out of the package and paint it. But still, I did the washing. I also did one without washing. Neither of them held paint. There's just neither of them. Like the one I washed and the one that I just took directly out of the package just to test. Like neither of them held any paint. It just like felt right off. It looked like shit. And I have done the same with a WizKids miniature, and the WizKids miniature worked 100%. Like it just absolutely just took like it 100% took the paint perfectly. Like there was no problems with it. I will say one of the things that is a drawback for the WizKids ones is like you don't get to pick your primer, which I feel is always an important part of the model. Like like because like the WizKids are all that kind of like
they're white. They're off white.
They're like they're off white. They're like bone color, like peachy, or like kind of like a flesh color, maybe a little bit.
I mean, it's I don't know, the people aren't going to paint the fucking figures anyway. Let's just be honest. Some people that are going to be like, this is the first figure they're ever going to paint, and they're going to be like, oh, I did a good job, and it's going to be like, looks really bad, but you're still going to support them because you want to be supportive in the hobby. You're like, oh, good job, everybody. And then they're like, they never paint another thing again. And you're like, okay, that's fine. They painted their one character for D&D. They dipped their toe and they were like, I do not like. This was fun, but it was also a lot of work. And then they're done with it. So it doesn't really matter in the long run. And anybody who's going to be painting anything like on the reg are going to be getting more high quality figures to paint with,
Right. They'll eventually they'll graduate really rapidly.
They'll graduate very rapidly. So most of the time, as I say, they're not going to be using the Reaper Bone stuff. I think one of the benefits of the Reaper Bone stuff is that you could grab them, throw them in a box, and put them away to your next session, and then you're like, I need a displacer beast, and so you're like, you reach your big meaty paw into the box, just shuffle around until you find a displacer beast, and you put it on the table.
Using them as is actually what I ended up doing with mine. Like I was just like, fuck it, I'm just not gonna paint them, and like it worked great. Like to be honest, like I strongly recommend Reaper Bones for anyone who does a lot of minis based D&Ding, and just like don't paint them. Like who fucking cares?
Absolutely agree. So and also another Kickstarter that came up that recently that I was looking at that I was like, I wonder if Steve knows about this Kickstarter. It's got 9 days left to go. The Robotech Macross Dogfight the Miniatures game. A must-have collection for all Robotech fans.
I did not. Is it Palladium?
No, it is actually being done by let me see. Oh, that's where it would be. Minitech Games. A group of experienced toy creators, developers, and engineers. Our Robotech miniatures has been developed. Our Robotech miniatures has been developed and produced since 2019. We're dedicated to making the highest quality of anime miniatures for gaming. They're out of Hong Kong.
All right.
The minis look great. I'm wondering if they are that Palladium style 8,000 8 bajillion pieces.
Yeah, that was the thing too. Like I remember the Palladium models looked really good, but like fucking they were like 70 pieces.
The first 48 hours, which I think we missed, was you'd be getting the Macross SDF 1 ship mode miniature. So you'd be getting that along with the base core box, which is $130. So kind of par for course right now with a bigger Kickstarter game, but it only comes with 16 minutes and components. So that's, you're not getting a lot on that one. And then for $250, you get 16 miniatures plus 2 giant spaceships plus all the rewards. And then for $350, you get 16 miniatures and components, 28 miniatures add-on and components, and all applicable rewards. So
it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, I know. And then if you pledge $450, you get all that plus 1 more giant spaceship. But that you have to pay $450 for that.
How big are the figures? Are they really big?
I think they're like just like 20. They look like almost the same size. Well, okay, here's a good pick. They're a little bigger. The mechs are definitely bigger than 28 mil. Some of them are pretty large in that end, but still,
I mean, you got to put it in perspective too. If the models are real big, that's important.
Yeah, they're a little bigger, and the models are really fucking well done. If you take a look at it, you're gonna be like, oh shit, these models, these are some really nice sculpts on these models.
Okay, like so then the price is then I would say it's appropriately priced. It's boutique. Yeah. It's boutique priced.
It is very boutique priced. And you would like it, of course, because I know you are a fan of all things Robotech.
I actually like Macross. I still stand with the original creators that they actually recommend pirating all Macross products. So I will stand with that as well. Harmony. So there's a long story about this, but basically like Harmony Gold essentially like fucked them super hard with the licensing to the point where like Harmony Gold controls Robotech more than the original creators outside of Japan. So the original creator of Macross is just like, yeah, just pirate it. like he's basically like on the record. He's like, I love my show, I love my work, I'm proud of it, but you should pirate it.
So you know how you have the SDF-1 ship mode miniature. You also could get the SDF-1 as a robot miniature, and he's a giant robot.
Hell yeah!
It is a gigantic robot. That thing's huge. Holy fuck!
Yeah, those are the giant robots are huge. Like the battleships. Those are the equivalent of like the battleship that turns into a huge ass robot. Yeah, they're very cool.
So looking at the game, it's way too fucking complicated. I could tell you that right off the bat. I'm like looking at it, and it's got like tracks and stands and all sorts of craziness, and like how the movement phase works and how the combat works. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? But
I don't like that.
No, I mean it's too I'm at that age right now where anything that's too complicated, I'm just like, I don't want to play it. It's too complicated. With the exception of 30K, because I actually don't think it's that. If you have like, when you have the long history of playing Games Workshop games, like that complicatedness just gets like, I get it. It's complicated.
Right. Well, I mean, like the complicatedness is different though. It's because because you've experienced a complicated game like Warhammer and 40K, you know how much bullshit there is to learn it. Yeah. So I think it actually makes you not hardened to other complicated games, but rather more like willing to avoid other complicated games because you know how much bullshit is involved in learning a complicated game.
Yes, random bullshit go. That's basically every.
It's okay. So the memes are all over the place. So is the Moon Knight TV show actually embracing the meme Moon Knight?
The Moon Knight memes are actually all they're all photoshopped.
Yes, no, that part I knew. I knew that like all the stuff that made Moon Knight seem amazing and an awesome character, I knew that was just made up. But
yeah, that doesn't exist. It never existed in the comics.
Right, that part I knew, but I was the part I was.
No, it's not. It doesn't embrace that for the show.
Okay, very good. Because I saw someone. It sounded like a dub over, so I was pretty sure. But I mean, it's a TV show from Disney, so I don't know. It could have just been a shitty dub, but it sounded like someone like they actually did dub over the random bullshit go. Like they did the scene. So I was like, wait. Are they actually doing it in the show? Because like that's amazing.
It would make the show a lot better. The show's not terrible. It's just I think it's overly complicated for a Marvel show.
Whatever. It's fucking superhero bullshit. Who cares?
And I'm like, it's fine. I know there's probably some people who really love it. I'm waiting to see how it pays off at the end. I was never a Moon Knight fan growing up. I knew who he was. I knew he was one of the few Jewish superheroes that existed. That was openly Jewish. Next to Kitty Pryde, the Thing, Magneto. But I did not like know his story that much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't Magneto's name Eric Lehnsherr or something?
Yeah, Leischer.
Yeah,
he's German.
Like, yeah, but I mean, also like he like I thought that was like pretty like blatantly like he's been a Jewish character for like the entire time.
No.
Oh, right.
Much of the Magneto was in Auschwitz. Jewish thing was added much later in the X-Men continuity. I want to say late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, okay.
It was added in. His original origin story is he's like, I can't control wood, my one weakness.
Yeah, that's right. Where Reed Richards outwits him with a wooden gun.
Take this. Oh no, wood.
That was really funny. So ridiculous.
Exactly. It's like Magneto could easily be taken down by bows and arrows. Like, why aren't we doing this? But yes, Moon Knight is. But he somewhere along the way, I don't know when it happened. They turned him into the not schizophrenic, dissociative identity disorder character, and like where he has multiple personalities. And I didn't really know about that part, so I went back and I reread a bunch of the old comics, and I'm like, it's good. But this isn't TV show good. This is like I'm reading a graphic novel good. If you made this into a TV show, it's gonna be really obnoxious to show this like it is.
Yeah. The only superhero thing I've really enjoyed like at any time recently has absolutely been the Harley Quinn cartoon show. That show is fucking hilarious. But like I fully stand by that show being one of the funniest shows out there and a very good superhero property on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it's still a very well done show. You could easily watch it and you're like, oh, this show is, very, very well done. It's like watching a Marvel movie. Like all those TV shows feel like watching a Marvel movie, but it's still at the same time, it's kind of like, I'm actually, you know what I watched last night? I watched I watched Batman, not the Batman, Batman.
You watch Adam West Batman?
I watched no. That's Batman. No, this is Batman.
Oh, so you watched Michael Keaton?
No. That's the Batman. I don't
Michael
know.
Keaton's
I think it was just Batman. It's Batman 89. No. I watched the Stars of the Lighthouse, Robert Pattinson Batman.
Oh, I thought that was the Batman.
I don't know. It's all fucking.
I'm pretty sure that one's the Batman.
Is that one the Batman?
Yeah, with Incel Riddler.
I gotta say, I went into the movie automatically thinking I'm not gonna like it. Yes, it is the Batman. Okay. I went in thinking I was like, oh, this movie's gonna suck. Right?
I've heard it's really good.
I was so pleasantly surprised by how silly it was. And it's not like silly as in like, you want to get nuts, let's get nuts. It's more silly as in like everyone is so serious in it, but that seriousness takes it to such a silly level that it's really fun to watch. Like, yeah, that's when he shows up and he's like, I'm vengeance. I'm like, that is hysterical, and it's awesome to watch.
People have said that's a really like. Apparently, everyone was just like, "Yeah, dude, the movie's fucking good." Like people were like, "I didn't expect it to be good, but man, it's good."
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like, and Colin Farrell is doing this weird Robert De Niro impression throughout the entire fucking movie, and it's so good. Jeffrey Wright shows up, and he's literally. I still think Jeffrey Wright is a Jordan Peele character who he just never got out of character. Like he just acts like Jordan Peele, like is goofing around, like it's a parody in Key and Peele of Jordan Peele playing Jeffrey Wright in a movie. Like it feels like levels of parody, and it's great. And Paul Dano as the Riddler, Incel Riddler, is so great too because he's like doing a voice where he'll be like, all right, Batman, I need you to give me a call. And it's just like, what is going on? This is so dumb.
Yeah, I heard it was very deranged.
And John Turturro is so fucking good in that movie. Like he like the fact that I don't know if it's eligible for what year it's eligible for an Academy Award, but it's like if John Turturro does not win a supporting actor nod for that movie, I don't believe in God anymore.
John Turturro, is that the Jesus?
The Jesus, yes.
Hell yeah.
He plays Carmine Falcone. And it's,
no way, really?
Yeah, he's so good in it. Like,
oh, he'd be a great Falcone.
Yeah, and he's like, because he puts on this like this really quiet voice when he's talking, and he's so like, it's so good. One of the my friend Kevin was telling me that it's like his big thing out of it was that the movie has a lot of shallow focus, which makes it kind of feel like a 90s music video. Which after he mentioned that to me, I was watching, I was like, oh, holy shit, it does look like a 90s music video. But also on top of that, it's like the shallow focus makes it actually feel like a early 2000s thriller, like a David Fincher. Who's the guy that did is it Steven? No, not Steven Summers. That's the guy who did The Mummy. Shit. The guy who did Usual Suspects.
Oh, I don't know. I've only seen The Usual Suspect. That was a good movie.
Yes, it was a very good movie. But the guy, Bryan Singer, who's a complete shithead, but it kind of feels like a David Fincher, Bryan Singer style movie from the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. And I absolutely adored the look of this movie. It felt like a real movie. I haven't seen a movie feel like a real movie in a long time, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, I'll have to. I guess I'll have to actually watch that one.
Yeah. Let me tell you this though. The movie needs a good hour cut out of it though. Like the movie I watched, it's too long, and I know it's a joke at this point. Like I get it. I'm an adult. I have kids. I don't have that much time to watch a movie, but 3 hours on a Batman movie is too much.
Wow, is it really that long?
It is that long, and there's so much like tension building cinematography in there, camera work, that's fine, but it's too much.
I mean,
and so that I'm just like, okay,
I'll watch it in segments.
That's what I did. I watched it in 2 days. Yeah. I do recommend it still. It's still an amazingly done movie. It just needs to be tightened up a lot because there's no reason for that movie to be 3 hours long.
I do like that Robert Pattinson just looks like fucking shit though. I'm a fan of that.
And that's one of the funny things about it too, is like I'm watching it and I'm just like, this is so good. It feels very like when I remember them talking about the movie when it first came out or was coming out, and they're like, this is going to be Batman the detective as opposed to Batman the action hero. And it really is. It's like a detective movie. It feels very like it feels like a David Fincher movie. It feels like the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo style movie, where it's a lot of people like, what's the Batman investigating? But then there'll be like these really big action scenes, and you're like, it fits very well into what's going on. Some of the action gets a little too goofy for its own good, and that's where I'm saying it's like layers and layers of meta on top of each other. So it's like there's that, and I think that's, but I think it's pretty fantastic to have because it was like right at the center point of the movie, this big action scene happens. And I'm like, this is the exact moment this action scene needed to happen. And I was so happy it did.
Nice.
Well, it's the guy who did the Planet of the Apes movies, that Matt Reeves. And if you ever seen those are actually pretty good movies.
I saw remakes. I saw the first one. It was decent. Yeah.
Well, the first one, it definitely is the most different out of all of them. They're all pretty good action movies. I really do.
The first one is the origin of the iconic ape strong together.
Yes, apes strong together.
Yeah,
ape shall not kill ape. Yes. Sorry. Thinking about my monkeys now. But he did it. I was shocked at how much I liked that movie. Shocked, sir. Shocked and appalled. There was a guy who's playing like he's the commissioner. He's the commissioner who's above Gordon. And the guy was doing his best Paul Giamatti impression I've ever seen someone do. And I was like, man, I've never seen anybody do Paul Giamatti impression better than Paul Giamatti.
I don't want any fucking Merlot.
It was like, he's like, God damn it, Gordon, what are you doing over here? You know?
That's good.
And I did like that they kind of made Gotham feel like it was in New Jersey. Even though they filmed it in Chicago again. I didn't know they filmed it in Chicago. But I was watching it, and it was Leonardo DiCaprio meme of me just pointing at the TV with like a like
more whacker.
Well, no, it was more of like, that's the Tribune Tower, you know, that sort of thing. It's
nice.
My wife goes, that was Chicago? I was like, yeah, that was right by the Tribune Tower. She goes, oh. I go, yeah, you worked like a mile from there. Come on.
Yeah, there's certain places in Chicago that I've been to a lot that I recognize immediately. Yeah, and I'm just like, that's Chicago. Like that's Chicago. And then there's shows that are supposedly set in Chicago that are so uncannily not in Chicago, where I'm just like, literally none of that is in Chicago. Like the Dresden Files TV show.
Oh well, that doesn't count. That's Canadian.
But I mean, it still counts because they said that it's set in Chicago, and like it is just like the most not Chicago city ever.
Yeah, all those are filmed in Chicago. And are filmed in Toronto or something like that, Vancouver. Which is what I would have liked to have had. If I had a choice to go back and do anything with my life, I would go and work in the Vancouver film industry, because all the TV shows that I love come out of that industry. So,
yeah, I mean, also let's not forget the incredible 90s young adult terrible television that came out of Canada, like in droves, like Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Oh yeah.
What's the other Camp Anawana?
Salute Your Shorts, I don't think was Canadian, but maybe.
I think it was. I thought all of those Nickelodeon shows were Canadian, like Hey Dude, Salute Your Shorts. I was fairly certain that every one of those shows was a Canadian show.
I mean, I will not spend the effort in looking it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter.
No, I'm talking about more of the sci-fi shows like Warehouse 13, Eureka,
right.
Stargate SG-1, Psych.
I wonder if I bet you the short series. There's a short series I can't fucking remember the name of. That's gonna drive Room. It's I think it's Room something, like Room 51 or something. It is one of the fucking coolest little like mini universes. It's like a 6-episode mini series. It's fucking great. So like the premise of this show, it's kind of like, you know, it's sci-fi weird, but a room that existed in a hotel room, it basically like reality was destroyed in this room, and the room now doesn't exist in the real world. However, every single thing that was in the room now has a weird power and has been scattered on Earth. And the protagonist has a key that if you put it into any door, it opens that door into a facsimile of the room. And then when you go into the room, you can, it's a room. So like there's water there. It's a functional room. You can sleep, whatever. But when you leave, you can just think of where you want to exit and your door will be there. So you could be like, I want to come out in the Library of Congress bathroom. You just like open the door and you're in the Library of Congress bathroom.
Like Library of Congress bathroom.
And then there's like things like there's like a penny. This isn't an actual one. I can't remember what the penny's actual power was, but like there's a penny that was one, like there was like an ashtray full of change, and like each one of the coins has a different power, but like the penny is like a regular penny, but if you throw it, it has like the force of like a missile launcher. So if you like throw it into a car, the car will explode. There's all of the things like that. And I cannot fucking remember for the life of me what the name of that series was, but it was really cool. And every object, like everyone who had an object, they were all called like a bearer. And like through happenstance, if you have an object, you are like irrevocably drawn to other people who also have objects. And then there's one dude who's trying to collect them all, essentially, because he thinks that if he collects all of them, he'll basically become God, like literal God.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a Canadian show, and it was really good.
It sounds like it's a Canadian show.
It was really weird and very cool.
All right. So do we have any other? Oh, well, I guess I could say the kind of went into the background of some of the leagues of Votan for the squats now.
The squats
that we were talking about last week. Did you mention that the Votan of the leagues of Votan is actually like a central AI for like, they're like the ancestor gods of the squats are these gigantic AI balls that have like faces on them, and they ask it questions and then they return their answers to it, right? And basically I heard someone describe it as, it's like, just imagine that you're asking Wikipedia for an answer, but however you're asking it on a Windows 3.1 system with all of the tabs open.
That's great.
I'm like, that's hysterical. I love that analogy on that one. But that's about it on that one. So they haven't shown any of the other models or anything else yet for squats.
That model still doesn't look like a squat to me. Like it still just looks like a fucking dude with a beard, just like a regular ass dude with a beard. Like that. Like you told me that's like an imp guardsman in better armor, and I'd be like, sure, okay.
There you go. And anything else then?
Nah, man, I think that's it.
All right. Well, go to the Game Classy Facebook pages, but I couldn't remember what I was thinking for a second.
You were about to stumble into Planet Arbitrary, but
I was just about, and I caught myself. Go to the Game Classy Facebook page. It's the best way you can get into contact with us. You could like, comment, subscribe on the iTunes, like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTubes. You could follow Steve at @command_throw on Twitter. Right. And you could follow me at GameClassyJoe on the Instagram. Aside from that, Steve, until next time,
watch the Harley Quinn show. It's really funny. Fucking Dr. Psycho is great.
Game Classy.